I just asked you a new question. Who are the good guys in the Israel-Hamas war?
I have nothing to add other than we adopted policy.
Simple question. Israel's our ally, one of our best friends. They were attacked on October 7th. One of these statements that was withdrawn by the ABA came out on October 9th, 2 days after women and children were killed and raped and taken hostage, villages destroyed. Israel's fighting a terrorist organization.
Welcome back to Freedom Forge, the channel where we stand for faith, freedom, personal responsibility, and the constitutional principles that made America strong. If you believe in honest political analysis, in-depth coverage of congressional hearings, and holding powerful institutions accountable, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest videos. Today we're covering a heated congressional hearing focused on the role of the American Bar Association, commonly known as the ABA, and whether it has remained a truly nonpartisan legal organization or has become increasingly political. During the hearing, Representative Jim Jordan questioned ABA President Michelle Banky about the organization's withdrawal of statements related to the Israel-Hamas war, its positions on controversial social issues, and its influence over legal education and the legal profession. What followed was a tense exchange that raised larger questions about political neutrality, institutional credibility, and public trust.
Thank the witnesses for being here. We're now going to move on to the question and answer portion of our hearing, and we'll begin with Chairman Jordan. I now recognize Chairman Jordan for 5 minutes for the purpose of...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Banky, a press statement November 30th, 2023, headline reads, American Bar Association withdraws 2 statements on Israel-Hamas war. Why did the ABA withdraw those statements?
Congressman, I am the president and became the president last August. The process for either making statements or withdrawing statements, those particular statements happened outside of my time in presidency.
I understand that, but why did you do it? You're the president of the same association that withdrew the statements. You know why they did it?
Each year, when the ABA takes positions, they do so based on policy that has been adopted by...
Who are the good guys in the Israel-Hamas war, Ms. Banky?
When we adopt policy...
No, that wasn't my question. I just asked you a new question. Who are the good guys in the Israel-Hamas war?
I have nothing to add other than we adopted policy.
Simple question. Israel's our ally, one of our best friends. They were attacked on October 7th. One of these statements that was withdrawn by the ABA came out on October 9th, 2 days after women and children were killed and raped and taken hostage, villages destroyed. Israel's fighting a terrorist organization. I'm asking you a simple question. Who are the good guys, Israel or the terrorist organization?
The ABA adopted policy, and when the ABA adopts policy, then statements are issued, and those are the decisions that
I'm not asking about the statements right now. Forget the statements for a second. I'm asking you a simple question. Who do you want to win, Israel or the terrorist organization?
I have nothing further to add. My personal opinion is not relevant. I am here as the president of the American Bar Association.
You took statements down, statements that were issued 2 days after Israel was attacked. The statements were taken down because they were deeply flawed, because they suggested Israel was guilty of war crimes. That was ridiculous, and you took those statements down. Now I'm asking you, as the head of the Bar Association, who are the good guys in this conflict? Our friend and ally, Israel, or the terrorist organization Hamas? This is not a trick question. It's actually a simple question.
I have nothing further to add.
You won't answer. Third sentence of your written testimony, you said that the American Bar Association is a nonpartisan organization. Is that really true?
Yes, sir, it is.
Really? Do you take any partisan positions as the American Bar Association?
The ABA takes position when our House of Delegates...
The association opposes any law that restricts abortion. This came out after the Dobbs decision. That's pretty partisan. The American Bar Association opposes detention of individuals who are here illegally. Any migrants who break our immigration laws, you oppose detention. Those sound pretty partisan positions to me. Would you agree?
The ABA takes positions by our House of Delegates, which is made up of 600 lawyers from across the country. When we take positions, we do so based on the information that we believe is...
How about men and women's sports? Do you have a position on that?
I don't have a list of all of our...
I'll read from the American Bar Association, adopted by the House of Delegates, August 9th, 2021 resolution. The American Bar Association opposes any federal, state, local, territorial, tribal regulation or policy that prohibits transgender students from participating in athletics in accordance with their gender identity. Sounds like you're for men and women's sports to me.
Our House of Delegates adopted a resolution based on the discussion and debate of our 600-member board or House of Delegates.
I've never heard of a nonpartisan organization that's for unrestricted abortion, no detention for people who break our immigration law, and who want men and women's sports. I've never heard of a nonpartisan organization adopt those positions. You still say you're nonpartisan?
I do, sir.
Wow, that's amazing. Nonpartisan, and won't tell us who you want to win the war, our ally or a terrorist organization. Mr. Smith, the marketplace has a way of speaking. How many lawyers do we have in the United States of America?
Several million.
Several million. Do you know how many are in the American Bar Association? I think it's like 1.5 million lawyers in the country. Some people might think that's too many. I don't know that that is or isn't, but 1.5 million, I think. How many do you know are in the Bar Association?
Members of the ABA, I don't know that number off the top.
Like 200 and some thousand. So most lawyers say, I don't want to join this nonpartisan organization. You think maybe it has something to do with their partisanship, why they don't want to join?
Well, I think that's the reason you're seeing state Supreme Courts moving away from having the ABA act as the gatekeeper for lawyers to be able to sit for their
Several states are doing that, right? Tennessee, Texas, Florida, saying we don't want these guys who can't even tell us that they want our ally to win a war, who take all kinds of left-wing positions and then pretend to be nonpartisan. We don't want them doing the accreditation for our law schools in our respective state. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Yeah, and I think it's the marketplace speaking. The American people, American lawyers are saying, no, we're tired of this left-wing operation.
Yes, I think that is accurate, Congressman.
I will yield back to the chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Jordan, and I now recognize Mr.
As I watched this hearing, one thing became immediately clear. This wasn't simply a disagreement over legal policy. It was a debate over whether America's most influential legal organizations can honestly claim to be neutral while taking positions on some of the most politically divisive issues facing the country. Representative Jim Jordan came into this hearing with a straightforward approach. Rather than beginning with complicated legal theories, he asked what many Americans would probably consider a simple question. Who are the good guys in the Israel-Hamas war? Now, regardless of where anyone stands on every aspect of Middle East policy, there's one fact that should not be forgotten. Hamas is officially designated by the United States as a terrorist organization. On October 7th, Israel experienced one of the deadliest terrorist attacks in its history. Civilians were murdered, families were attacked, people were kidnapped, and entire communities were traumatized. Jordan repeatedly asked the ABA president whether Israel or Hamas represented the good guys in this conflict. Instead of answering directly, she repeatedly stated that her personal opinion was not relevant because she was appearing in her official capacity as president of the American Bar Association. Now, let's be fair. There are legitimate reasons why leaders of large organizations sometimes avoid expressing personal political opinions during congressional hearings. Their responsibility is to represent their institution rather than themselves. But there is another side to this argument that Jordan was clearly trying to highlight. When an organization has already chosen to issue public statements about a major international conflict, can it suddenly claim neutrality when asked to defend those statements? That was really the heart of Jordan's questioning. He pointed out that one of the ABA statements was released just 2 days after the October 7th attacks and argued that it unfairly suggested Israel had committed war crimes before many facts had even been established. According to Jordan, the ABA later withdrew those statements because they were deeply flawed. Whether someone agrees with that interpretation or not, the withdrawal itself naturally raises questions. If the statements were appropriate, why withdraw them? If they were inappropriate, why were they issued in the first place? Those are reasonable questions for lawmakers to ask. What stood out during the hearing wasn't simply that Banky declined to answer Jordan's question. It was that she declined multiple times, even after Jordan rephrased it in different ways. Instead of answering directly, she repeatedly returned to the same explanation. The ABA follows policies adopted by its House of Delegates. The statements reflected organizational policy. Her personal opinion wasn't relevant. From a communication standpoint, this strategy may have protected the organization from making headlines based on a personal remark. But politically, it created another headline entirely. Because many viewers watching this exchange were likely left asking themselves why answering such a straightforward question seems so difficult. Jordan then shifted the hearing away from foreign policy and towards something even bigger. He challenged the ABA's repeated claim that it is a nonpartisan organization. This was probably the most significant part of the entire exchange. Rather than simply accusing the ABA of political bias, Jordan began listing policy positions the organization has officially adopted. He pointed to the ABA's opposition to laws restricting abortion following the Dobbs decision. He cited ABA positions opposing detention of people who entered the United States illegally. He referenced the organization's support for allowing transgender students to participate in sports according to their gender identity. Now, whether someone supports or opposes those positions is not the issue Jordan was emphasizing. His argument was much simpler. Can an organization that consistently adopts positions on highly controversial public issues still accurately describe itself as nonpartisan? That's an important distinction. Many organizations advocate for public policy. There is nothing inherently wrong with advocacy. But once an organization becomes involved in major political debates, it becomes more difficult for critics to view it as politically neutral. Banky defended the ABA by explaining that every official position comes through debate and voting by its approximately 600-member House of Delegates. In other words, these positions are not created by one individual. They are adopted through the organization's internal democratic process. That explanation certainly provides context, but it doesn't necessarily answer Jordan's broader concern. If nearly every public policy position adopted by an organization tends to align with one side of America's political spectrum, many people will naturally question whether the organization is truly nonpartisan. That perception matters, especially for an organization that plays such an influential role within the American legal system. Jordan then introduced another interesting argument. He turned to witness Smith and asked about ABA membership. The point he was making wasn't simply about numbers. It was about confidence. Jordan suggested that if only a fraction of American lawyers choose to become ABA members, perhaps many legal professionals no longer believe the organization represents them. Smith agreed that several state Supreme Courts, including Tennessee, Texas, and Florida, have been moving away from relying on the ABA as a gatekeeper for law school accreditation or aspects of lawyer qualification. Jordan interpreted this trend as evidence that what he called the marketplace is rejecting the ABA. Now, let's be careful here. There are likely many reasons why lawyers choose not to join professional organizations. Membership decisions can depend on cost, career focus, networking opportunities, specialization, or personal preference. Likewise, states may reconsider the ABA's role for a variety of legal, administrative, or political reasons. Still, Jordan's broader point was about public confidence. Institutions rely on trust. When enough people begin questioning an institution's neutrality, those questions can influence policy decisions and institutional relationships. From my perspective, as someone who believes strongly in constitutional government and accountability, this hearing reflects a much larger issue facing America today. Across government, higher education, corporations, media, and professional organizations, Americans increasingly question whether institutions that describe themselves as independent or nonpartisan are actually living up to that standard. Conservatives often argue that many of these institutions have gradually shifted toward progressive viewpoints, while continuing to present themselves as neutral referees. Supporters of those organizations usually respond that their positions are based on professional expertise, legal analysis, or established principles rather than partisan politics. Reasonable people can disagree on where that line should be drawn, but transparency is essential. If an organization actively advocates for public policy positions, people deserve to know that. If an organization wants to maintain a reputation for neutrality, it should be prepared to explain how its actions support that claim. That is exactly why congressional oversight hearings like this one matter. They give elected representatives an opportunity to ask difficult questions on behalf of the American people. Sometimes witnesses provide convincing answers. Sometimes they do not. Ultimately, viewers can judge the exchange for themselves. One thing that stood out to me throughout this hearing was Jordan's questioning style. He repeatedly reduced complicated institutional debates down to straightforward questions that ordinary Americans could easily understand. Whether someone agrees with his conclusions or not, there is value in asking direct questions and allowing the public to evaluate the responses. In a democratic republic, accountability depends on transparency. Organizations that influence public life should expect tough questions. Government agencies should expect tough questions. Universities should expect tough questions. Professional associations should expect tough questions. No institution should be immune from public scrutiny simply because of its history or reputation. At the same time, it's also important that criticism remains grounded in facts rather than assumptions. People should examine the ABEA's official policies, review the hearing themselves, and decide whether the organization's actions match its description of itself. Healthy debate requires informed citizens. As Americans, we should never stop asking questions. We should never stop demanding accountability. And we should never be afraid to examine whether powerful institutions are living up to the principles they publicly claim to represent. That's exactly why hearings like this remain so important. They allow competing viewpoints to be tested in public, where every American has the opportunity to watch, evaluate the evidence, and reach their own conclusions. If you enjoyed this analysis and want more coverage of congressional hearings, constitutional issues, and the political debates shaping America's future, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Freedom Forge, and share this video with friends and family who believe in open debate and government accountability. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.